and welcome back to Anna Rose Reads the Podcast. I am your host, Anna, and I am over the moon today to be sharing this particular episode. I have a very special guest this week. I mean, all of my guests are very special, but I've been reading this particular guest's work for a while now. I've been wanting to interview them and ask them a lot of questions about a lot of their work, but the opportunity has presented itself for us to discuss one of their upcoming releases. And I am so thrilled to be sharing my conversation with the one and only Stephen Graham Jones. We talk in particular about his upcoming release, which is going to be on shelves today. It's Saga Doubles. So basically you get two books for the price of one. You're going to get Babysitter Lives and Killer on the Road. I listened to Babysitter Lives, I think a summer ago, just about a year ago, while I was remodeling my home. And if you want to talk about an immersive, spooky experience, oh my goodness. But me and Steven talk about a couple different things with these stories. We really do focus on Killer on the Road since that is the newest thing that is out in the world from him. And I really, really love that story. I love Harper as a final girl-esque character. And we talk about that a lot. We talk about the different kind of characters that Steven writes, how he approaches storytelling, stories that have propulsion and motion when obviously a book is a stationary thing in your hands. We also talk about the X-Files, which I absolutely just am so giddy about because there are so many things of Steven's that I've read that I'm like, I bet this man is a fan of the X-Files and pulled some inspiration. And sure enough, it was just a really cool tidbit of this conversation. If you know me, you know how thrilled I am. So I'm going to stop gushing now. I'm going to stop fangirling a bit. And I'm going to let you all listen. So please enjoy. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
I'm super, super excited to have you on the podcast today. I feel like I've been reading you for years now, and so I'm not gonna lie, it's a little surreal being able to chat with you one-on-one about your books. And I guess, we're here mostly to talk about Killer on the Road and Babysitter Lives, which are the two reissues that are coming out with Saga Press as Saga Doubles. But in the event that people don't know who you are, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll move on to these re-releases?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Stephen Graham Jones. I'm from Texas and I write romance novels.
You do. You oddly do, though. You write a lot of love stories. They're just a little messed up, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, Killer on the Road and Babysitter Lives, these are stories that you had written previously, and are
Mhm.
kind of getting new life with this format from Saga. How does it feel to see these stories kind of take on this new format?
It's really cool. And I didn't, when I wrote, I guess I can tell the story of how I wrote them. It's I think I put it in the acknowledgments of one of them, but I'll go ahead and say it here. So I had done Map the Interior for Ellen Datlow for Tour.com, and she called me up, I guess this must have been 2018, and she said, hey, why don't you do another novella for me? Because mapping did well, so we want another one from you. And I said, sure, because mapping the interior, it took 4 days. I figured I got 4 days. It was summer. I can do this. So I sat down to blast out another novella, and bam, 4 weeks later, I had either Killer on the Road or Babysitter Lives. I think it was Babysitter Lives. I think I wrote that one first. And I was like, well, that sucked because I was supposed to write a novella, not a novel. And so I pushed it to the side, and I said, I got to write this novella for Ellen Datlow. And pushed through. 4 weeks later, I had Killer on the Road. And I was like, what is going on, dude? Don't you know how to write a novella anymore? It's all you have to do is stop at 115 pages. It's not that hard. And so I pushed Killer on the Road aside and wrote for 115 pages and found a stopping point in a thing. And I was so happy. I was like, all right, I finally remembered how to do it. But then, not at all on purpose, like this other final line occurred to me, and it opened it up into a whole novel, this novella. And so I called up my agent and I said, hey, what do you want me to do? Turn this into a novel or keep it a novella and give it to Ellen Datlow? And my agent didn't even skip a beat. She said, go ahead and turn it into a novel. Those are easier to sell. So I turned it into a novel, and that became The Only Good Indians. And then I think that didn't take much longer because I was already like halfway through it. So anyways, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, then I sat down and wrote Night of the Mannequins. And I finally wrote a novella after like that was my fourth try, and I was so happy to write a novella. Um, but I didn't realize until Saga paired them in this like, old ace doubles or flip book or
Yeah.
do-si-do or whatever you call it kind of format. I didn't realize that these two books kind of paired together. It's kind of natural that they do pair together, I guess, because I wrote them back to back themselves. So I wrote them back to back. They're coming out back to back. It kind of seems right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I love everything that you've written in between there. I mean, I love Night of the
Hmm.
Mannequins, and
Hmm.
I do find it a little funny that you had The Only Good Indians to be something shorter, and you're like, we'll just make it a novel, and
Yeah.
it turned into what it turned into. I appreciate the nonchalance of you saying that. But to talk a little bit more specifically about each of these stories, Killer on the Road and Babysitter Lives, we'll start with Killer on the Road. You would talk about it a little bit in your acknowledgments, so just if you want to elaborate on this a little bit more, I always like to ask authors, what's your kernel of inspiration? Where was the nugget for this idea and how did it start? And I know for you, you mentioned it was driving across 80 in Wyoming, but if you
Yeah.
want to elaborate on
Yeah.
that anymore, I'd be happy to hear it.
Yeah, I mean that's probably if there is a trigger point, that's probably it. I was in a couple of year period where I was always burning up the highway between Colorado and or between Boulder and Salt Lake City, and that involves scooting down 80 back and forth, and all weather too, because 80 is I don't know what the worst interstate weather-wise in America is, but I wouldn't doubt if it's that stretch of Highway 80, because man, it is a brutal place to try to be. Even when it's not snowy or icy, the wind, they close it down for wind all the time. It'll blow you right off the road, and you'll see trucks in front of you, like one whole side of this big rig will like lift up a
Oh
little
man.
bit. And you're like, hey, I don't want to pass that truck right now. you know,
No,
it,
absolutely not.
it's a dicey place, and also there's just so much, I guess, open country. It just it feels like, yeah, there's some blacktop here, but other than that, it's the same as it's always been. Um, and to tell you the truth, I feel like two things were born from those trips. One was Killer on the Road, and the other was Dark Mill South from Don't Fear the Reaper. You know.
Yeah, no, I
Hmm.
I can see how a land like that kind of landscape where it's so
Hmm.
treacherous but also so visible, right? Like there's something
Hmm.
really freaky about you can take it all in and it's all visible. It's not hiding in the shadows, but it's still present in your mind, like the terror of
Yeah.
those things. So I can
Yeah.
certainly see how that would make some room for these kinds of stories.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. But I guess I said that's one place it started. I've also just loved road movies, road horror movies especially. Like I love the Joyride trilogy. I think that's some really good horror. Forsaken, Hitcher. Um, I guess I should make a list of all my favorite road horror films. But I've got some like Reeker. I consider the Reeker 1 and 2. I consider those road horror as well. I've actually got Reeker 3, I think, on DVD, but I haven't watched it yet for some reason. But and I love those stories too about people who are driving across a vast, like empty looking space and they break down, What are they going to do when they
yeah.
break down? Those are really fun for me.
Yeah, I don't know if are you an X-Files fan? Like, have you seen the
Yes.
show? Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so I'm a big X-Files nerd, and there's an
Hmm.
episode I think it's from season 6, episode 2. It has
Hmm.
Bryan Cranston in it, like before he
Yeah.
got his
Yeah.
big break, and it
Yeah.
was called Drive, and he has to keep driving west, or his head will literally explode. And the
Yeah.
whole entire
Yeah.
time I was reading Killer on the Road, I could not help but think of that episode. It feels so much the same, like that
Yeah. Oh,
tension
that's
and
cool.
propulsion.
Yeah. And I bet Vince Gilligan at least produced that, if not did more. And then of course Vince Gilligan, Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston.
Absolutely.
It makes a lot of sense. And I've been during the pandemic in 2020, my daughter and I started rewatching the X-Files. I say rewatching, it's her first time. It's my, I don't know, second time probably to go all the way through the series. And she's not in town very often, so we're watching it just really slowly, but we just got to season 9. We watched episode 1 of season 9, which it feels like it was shot by a director who does soap operas, because there's all these
Yep.
like close-ups with and the focus is funny, and it's like a lot of smoldering gazes. It's a really weird episode. but
It's
but
a weird
I,
time.
but I saw the preview for the second episode of season 9, which I never saw. I say I'm rewatching this. I never watched once Doggett and Reyes took over. I checked out back in what
Yep.
'01 or whenever this was. So this is my first
Hmm.
time to watch them solve their own cases. But episode 2 of season 9, it looks just in the thumbnail, like that episode that you're talking about, 6'2", you know?
Yeah, no, no, it does. And like I'm such a sucker for Mulder and Scully. Like I very
Hmm.
much like sometimes when I rewatch I have to hard stop just because I get too upset whenever they're not there anymore, you know? But yeah,
Oh
no,
yeah,
there's
for sure.
there's a couple episodes in season 9 and
Hmm.
onward that feel
Yeah.
very much the same because of that setting. So
Nice,
you're
nice.
you're in
Well,
for a
yeah,
treat.
I have watched the like the redos, whatever you call them,
Yeah, the
season 10 and
reboots.
11. Yeah, those little short seasons. I'll watch those, and they were fun. Yeah, I'm kind of anxious to fall through season 9 and see what's happening.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what you think too. But it's really there's
Mm.
there's been a few times that I've read your books and I'm like, God, I wonder if he's an X-Files fan because there's just a few
Oh yeah.
instances that it feels so integral to
Well,
that show.
I mean, have you read Demon Theory?
I have not yet. I have a
Okay,
copy, but I need
and
to read it.
Demon Theory starts out with two of the characters dressed up like Mulder and Scully. You
Oh,
know.
fantastic. That's perfect. That might be my new favorite from you then. All right. Well, I do want to bring it back to Killer on the Road though. And kind of one of my favorite things about Killer on the Road and quite frankly all your work
Mhm,
is your Final Girl-esque characters. You know, I don't know if you would call Harper exactly a tried and true Final Girl
mhm,
because I don't know if you'd call this really a slasher. This is kind of
mhm,
like a serial
mhm,
killing kind of novel.
mhm,
But what I think is really great about your writing is none of your final girls really read the same to me. They're all very individual. And so
mhm.
I'm really kind of curious how you approach writing Harper in particular, or really any of your final girls, because Harper feels like her own person, Jade feels like her own person. I could go on, and
Mhm.
that's just something I think is really, really special to your writing.
No, thank you. I never had thought about how to differentiate all these final girls, survivor girls, whatever we're gonna call them, you know. Like yeah, no, I mean some of them are definitely final girls. I think some of them are probably survivor girls. And but it's such a useless distinction. It's like what is it? Differentiation without is it what do they say? Difference without distinction is what they say?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not
yeah.
it. Is that what they say? Is
Something
that it?
close to that.
That doesn't sound right. But anyways, um, yeah, so it's just me who splits that hair. I don't think other people are that concerned with it. But I guess if I could explain it at all, it's like if I were to write 5 astronaut novels in a row, on a roll, maybe, then I think every one of those astronauts would be their own person, you know, and
Yeah.
they would get through space and lack of oxygen and aliens and moon dust and all that stuff in their own particular ways. And that's probably the best explanation I've got for um, why these women in my books are their own people. You know, it's just that they are their own people. So they're gonna figure they're good. They have their own attitudes, their own backstories, their own longings, their own regrets, all that stuff. I mean, but there probably is a little awareness that I'm not even that aware of myself that I can't do the same thing over and over. You know, so
Yeah.
like now that I've done Jade a certain way, I can't do Jade again.
hmm That makes
Hmm.
sense. And you know, as me being a woman who's reading your stories, it
Hmm.
means a lot that there's that sense of individuality because you know, when you look sometimes at older films, the final
Hmm.
girl archetype is just the screaming head, you know. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate where we're at in horror that we have people like you who are writing so individualized types, if that makes any sense.
No, thank you, thank you. Yeah, but you're right. For a long time, the woman in the horror was a scream queen, which really means her role, her function, was to make enough noise to alert the guys to come be heroes and save the day. You know, that's
Yeah.
not very fun.
No, I would agree. I would agree a lot.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then kind of on the flip side of that, for Killer on the Road, we have Bucket Mouth, who is our killer.
Hmm.
How the hell did you come up with him and decide and land on his special ability, I guess, is the best way I want to phrase it.
Um, I didn't initially know what his ability was going to be. Um, what like makes him monstrous? Really, what makes him monstrous are his desires, his predilections, you know, the bad things he does. But you're right, he does have like a characteristic and ability, you know, and
Hmm
that makes him different from everyone else in this world anyways. But he just started speaking in that opening and he had all this like playful charisma and I say playful charisma but like with simmering malice underneath, you know,
Yeah,
and he was just endlessly fun. And I, as soon as I tapped into his voice, I realized, oh, we got to find a forum to let this dude talk, you know?
that makes sense. Yeah. He almost feels like a cat toying with the mouse, right? Like he's having
Hmm.
fun with what he's doing.
He
Um,
totally is. Yeah, he loves his work, you know?
Yeah, and I'm doing my very best not to spoil, but I absolutely
Mhm.
have to ask you this question. Do you consciously feel like you have any shared DNA between Bucket Mouth and Good Stab in terms of their diet?
You know, that's a good point because there is a similar little, I don't know, dynamic that they share. And I guess I wrote Good Stuff. What is this? This is 2025. I must have wrote Good Stuff in 24 and a little bit of 25 maybe. I don't know. I don't remember when I wrote things, but but and I wrote this back in 2018. So what's that? At least 6 years, probably 6 years between, maybe
Yeah.
five and a half. I don't know. But I I guess when I wrote Good Stab, I did know that Killer on the Road was coming out. I knew that, the saga had picked it up and someday it was going to find the bookshelf. But I never I never had that feeling like, oh, I had this really fun idea with this killer in Wyoming that nobody's read yet. I got to do that again. And so
Yeah.
so here comes Good Stab. I wasn't thinking like that, but yeah, they do. You're right. They do share a little something, and maybe that's good. Maybe it's bad. I don't even
Oh
know.
no, I kind of I really appreciate it because it's like there's two very different ways that you can look at that ability, whatever you want to call it, that
Hmm.
feature.
Hmm.
And they're two sides of a very different coin, I feel like, between Good
Wow. Yeah.
Stab and Bucket
Yeah.
Mouth, you know.
That's
So
that's a good point because in with Good Stab, his like you are what you eat kind of thing,
mhm.
is a bind to put him in. How's he going to be the avenger of the Blackfeet people if he also has to eat those people?
Yeah.
How's he going to deal with that? But Bucket Mouth's like special characteristic is not to put him in a bind.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a fun thing to
But
just kind of think about and toy about. Like if they could ever have
mhm.
a conversation, dear Jesus, you
Oh
know what I
man,
mean?
that would be funny, wouldn't it? Yeah, yeah. I think Good Step would be pretty impatient, intolerant with Bucket Mouth, and I don't think
I
Bucket Mouth would make it very long.
I don't think so either. I do not think so at all. And we kind of touched on this already, but I just want to revisit it. Kind of from the writer's perspective, when
Mhm,
you're writing a story like Killer on the Road that has such high velocity, momentum, whatever you want to
mhm,
call it, it's fairly high action. How does that feel for you when you write these stories, right? Because you're
mhm,
it's a stationary practice writing. You're sitting
mhm.
down, you're writing. But this story moves. So how does that feel
Yeah,
to you?
these are my far and away most fun kind of stories to write. Stories that don't have downtime like that. Like that's my. I think if I have a big weakness with writing, it is how to deal with downtime. What do I do when the characters are just sitting there? And because, like, I guess maybe another way to say it is I always think the distinction between young adult novels and what we call adult novels is that young adult novels are adult novels with all the boring parts combed out, so it's you only
Yeah.
have the fun stuff. You only have the fun stuff left. And I love to read them. But it makes me wonder, why can't we just have fun stuff in our so-called adult novels, And so I love it when I come up with a build that allows me to only have the fun stuff.
Yeah, I would say that Killer on the Road very much is like that. And kind of like to piggyback off that question, there are some ways, Stephen, that you have killed off some characters that I quite frankly, I'm like, okay, I see it. Like I've had that intrusive thought on the roadway before. There are some ways that quite frankly I've never fathomed before. There
Hmm.
were a few in Killer on the Road I just don't know how you came up with. Um, in particular, the one to do with a tow truck, and something
Oh
wrapped up in the tow
yeah,
truck. That one got
yeah,
to me
that's
real
right.
bad.
Yeah, yeah, that was a fun one. I like that. In some interview I gave to somebody. Yeah, it was to a magazine out of Denver, I think. I said I'm not going to live long enough um to kill all the people in all the ways I imagine. And I was talking about characters on the page, but they printed it kind of without that context, and so
Oh
it sounds
no.
like I'm just like a maniac out here, just slice it and dice it. But I mean, I don't know where that imagination or that kind of like thinking comes from with me, but I know it's been there my whole life. I haven't,
Yeah.
it's always been in my head. And I feel kind of fortunate to have found fiction so I can kind of vent a little bit of that. Or like, it's like when you're playing trombone, you have that spit valve.
Hmm.
It's like fiction is like that little spit valve for me. It lets my head get a little bit empty for a little bit, you know?
No, I totally get it. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
you've written a lot and talked about being from Texas and all of
Mm-hmm.
the crazy shit that you get into when you're
Mm-hmm.
bored and in the country. And I'm from Louisiana. I'm from south of New Orleans, so I relate to that very much, just in a very different scene.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Isn't
sometimes when
it
you
isn't
you
is south of New Orleans the ocean? What?
just about. No, we're literally like I think 50 minutes from the end of the earth down there. It's a little town called Homa, America.
Okay,
Um,
all right.
but yeah, no, there's like
Yeah,
times, when we were doing stuff as kids, I had a lot of male cousins, so there was a lot of
yeah,
four-wheelers and dirt bikes
yeah,
and pellet guns and stuff like that, that you just
yeah.
imagine if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. And so like
Hmm.
that's informed a lot of my creativity and my anxiety
Yeah.
because I see it going wrong.
No, for sure. Like, one of the things we used to do, which we thought was gonna be the best thing ever, was we would get gasoline and put it in glass bottles and put like corks or stoppers in the bottle. And then we'd get a tumbleweed and we'd stuff that bottle into the tumbleweed and put it at the top of whatever hill we could find. And we'd set that tumbleweed on fire and back off and shoot it with 22s or pellet guns, trying to make a big explosion, And that seemed like the best thing we could think of to while away an afternoon.
That very much sounds like if I had grown up with my cousins out in Texas, that's what that would look like. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I definitely can see like where that creativity of, hey, it's gonna go wrong, it's gonna end in injury or death,
Yeah.
it kind of
Yeah.
could come from there.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's always like a 1% chance it's all gonna work out. And that's why you do it, I think, man.
Yeah, my fiance is one of three boys, and so he
Yeah,
would agree with
yeah,
that because they are very much the same.
yeah. Like I remember one time we hauled our bikes up onto a windmill, up onto the tank on a windmill, and we built this unlikely little nailed together 2 by 12, I think, system of boards. We're gonna ride down from the tank to the ground on our bikes, and that didn't have a high likelihood of succeeding, and it didn't succeed. But if it would have, that would have been really cool.
It sounds like us. We have levees down here coming off the river and all. That sounds like some of
Yeah.
the shit that we came up with on the levee. Oh man. But aside on the flip side of your creativity of violence, you
Hmm.
you joked about it when we opened about how you write romance novels, but I will
Hmm.
say you do write love stories. And I think in particular on Killer on the Road, Harper's love for her sister, her hesitant, kind of begrudging love with her mom that kind of
Hmm.
takes a journey, and her regard for her friends is really, really poignant to me. And I
Hmm.
feel like a lot of times your best relationships, it's the best love is demonstrated in the relationships with the characters that you write. Can you talk a little bit about I feel like you write by showing love rather than telling love, if that makes sense. So if you want to speak to
Yeah.
that.
That's a good way to say that. I had not thought about that, but no, I think you're right. And um, I wonder if it's because I'm afraid that if I write the romantic kind of love, that I will give in to my own sentimental impulses too much and it'll get sappy and saccharine. And so I have to do it obliquely. I have to come around the side and make it familial or best friends or yeah, Harper cares a lot for jamming Kissy, for sure. And um I don't mean to say that this kind of love or that kind of love is longer lasting or deeper or more important or anything like that. I think it's probably just a case of what do I trust myself with?
Yeah.
Because my impulses are stupidly sentimental. Like the things I think of are always like, oh, it turned into a Hallmark card. And then but so I have to come up with things to keep that from happening.
I would give a lot of money for one book where you just go full on, go full in on all of this happiness.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway,
I guess, Flush Boy gets I think Flush Boy gets a little bit sappy.
I mean, you had me bad in tears at the end of a Teenage Slasher. I was
Mm-hmm.
weeping pretty hard for that one.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it kind of broke my heart too. And then,
Yeah, I can imagine it did. Oh man. Okay. Well, I'm gonna pivot a little bit now to Babysitter
hmm.
Lives. And I
Hmm.
have to tell you, the first time my first introduction to this story was me and my fiance were remodeling our bathrooms, and I had the audio going while I was painting cabinets, and finding nooks and crannies in my house that I didn't know
Whoa.
existed. So I can tell you it
Yeah.
was a very immersive experience for
Oh, I
me.
bet so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so same as before, if you just want to kind of talk about your inspiration for that story, kind of how it came to you,
Mhm.
all that good stuff.
I wonder if this one does come out of like Final Girls. It comes like Lori and Halloween
Yeah.
standing up for those two kids, and like yes, Michael's coming. The sensible thing to do is to run away, but she doesn't do it. She is there for those kids. That's her charge, and that's how Charlotte is. She's gonna stand in front of those kids as long as she can stand, and she's gonna fight for them. And I just really I respect that kind of stuff a lot, but also in order for me to like I don't know, dramatize that respect, I have to put the obstacles that she's facing and the antagonists that are coming for her, they have to be really dangerous, big, hungry, and everything.
Yeah, they definitely are. And I kind of, and even like with the title, you're kind of confronting the archetype of Laurie Strode head on,
Hmm.
right? Because you're saying
Hmm.
from the beginning, the babysitter's gonna live, but it's almost like an unspoken question, at what cost, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
That's really to me. I mean, it's kind of like just bringing to the surface what's percolating beneath every single thing I write, and really how I think stories work, because that is always the question. The character has like a 2% chance of succeeding, but at what cost? What kind are they going to use a potato peeler and just peel off a little another piece of their soul and trade it in and put it in a scale to get this ending they want? And like I'm really suspicious of endings, happy endings that um, don't sacrifice a piece of the character's soul.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I know what you mean by that. And I think, in particular with Babysitter Lives, whenever I was listening to it and, upon revisiting it,
Mhm.
the feeling of disorientation, liminal spaces, alternate realities, like all that sphere of horror, right? It feels like its own
Mhm.
character within the story for me. And so
Mhm.
whenever you said, you have to make it bigger, badder, and more present to these kind of characters, what was that? Was that disorienting for you to write? Like, were you ever
Yeah.
kind of out of
It
sorts?
no, it definitely was. Yes, like with Killer on the Road, you're right. That's mostly an adrenaline novel with terrible, horrific things happening. But I can get up from writing that and go in the other room and not jump scare myself 6 times on the way to the kitchen. With
Yeah.
Babysitter Lives, it was not like that. Babysitter Lives got under my skin when I was writing it for sure. And I kept expecting to see Gray Mommy or Charlie or a Jack in the Box or a lizard, you know?
Yeah. Well, that was what I was just about to bring up too, is I
Hmm.
can't look at beanbag chairs the same way
Hmm.
again, and I can't
Hmm.
look at any kind of lizard figurine the same way again.
Hmm.
And you have a really good way of taking kind of like the innocuous and really running with it, right? Like really
Hmm.
just going all out with it. What in particular like made you come up with beanbag spider eggs and this nanny cam lizard that's out to eat us all? Like, where does that come
Yeah.
from? Do you know?
I don't know where the lizard comes from, but I mean, the beanbag thing, I remember when I was a kid, I got in trouble for exploding a beanbag, like happens. But I remember it was like impossible to not get busted because those little spider egg looking things stick to you everywhere. Like they're so static, clingy, and you can't like you're like those dogs in the America's Funniest Home Video like videos who ate the trash while the owner's gone and now are wearing the trash can on their head. It's like that. Like there's no way to escape it. You definitely mess this beanbag up because you got those spider eggs all over you. That's what I always call them, spider eggs. Maybe everybody else doesn't, but so it was just a natural step for me to make them actually be spider eggs.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get it. It was very terrifying to listen to, I can assure you. And like I said, I'll
Hmm.
never really look at them the same way again. Um, and then the other part, that we talked about a little bit already is like the liminality, the disorientation. I find that to be some of the most terrifying horror whenever you don't,
Hmm.
like really anything's on the table, right? Like
Hmm.
Charlotte doesn't know what reality she's about to walk into next when she turns the knob on the door, truly.
Hmm.
Can you speak a little bit about why you think horror is so effective in the unknown like that?
I think because the reader has to confront the fact that this world has no rules that they can recognize anyways. And the reader has been pulled into a dark room and then the writer has blown the candle out and let go over their hand and they don't know where the walls are. They can barely tell up from down. And that to me is hugely disorienting and terrifying. And now that I describe it like that, I know where it comes from too. It's when I was young, like I was walking. This is my very first memory, I believe. I want to say I'm 3, so maybe I'm 4. And I'm really, really young. My mom took us to Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico, which is
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
cave, yeah, a tourism cave kind of fun. And when you go to Carlsbad Caverns, you go all the way to the bottom, and then they do this thing where they turn the lights out on you,
yeah. Hmm.
and they say this is what darkness is like, and you're like, wow, this is a darkness I've never felt because there is not a speck of light to be had. And this is pre-cell phone, so nobody's pulling their phones out, you know.
Right.
And what happened when they turned the lights out was I guess I got even more lost than I was supposed to because when the lights came back up, I had walked into a place where nobody was,
Mm, yeah.
and so I wandered around by myself, and I remember I was crying, and I was like, and I don't know what I was even thinking. I just knew that there was no people, and I was lost. And then finally, somehow, I found they have a little, or they used to have it. I guess they still have it, a little like store down there, like buy granola bars and
Yeah.
Cokes and that kind of stuff. And I went into it, and I was walking up and down the aisles looking for my mom, and I could speak then. I don't remember how old you are when you can speak, but I'm gonna guess I was between 3 and 4. And
Yeah.
I have this I have such a distinct memory of this tall blonde woman coming down the aisle and then leaning down to me. She had to lean down real far because I was so little, so short. And she said, "What's wrong? What do you need, honey?" And I said, Mom, I can't find my mom." And I remember her saying to me, "I can be your mommy," you know? And I don't know what, that's where that memory ends, you know?
Oh
And so
man.
I didn't even realize. I think that's probably a big part of where Babysitter Lives comes
I would
from.
I would say it all makes sense now for the most part. Yeah, no, it's such a formative memory. I mean, like in even generically speaking, like the idea that kids need night lights because we can't really
Mhm.
comprehend darkness like that, is really, really scary. And I want to say I've been to Carlsbad Caverns. I can't remember. I know I took a student council trip to New Mexico when I was a senior in high school, but I can't remember if we did that or not. But
Mhm.
I know what you're talking about. I know I've definitely seen pictures of it. It's very frightening, especially how
Yeah,
deep down those things go too.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Babysitter Lives is just incredibly disorienting. It's one that you
Yeah.
kind of lose yourself in the story. I found myself whenever, like I said, I was listening to it, I was working on cabinets and crap, and time had passed, and I didn't even realize it passed, and you're just trying to keep up with everything that's going on.
hmm
How do you keep track of, like, we talked about you feeling disoriented, but how do you kind of get back on track to finish out a story like that?
Yeah, I mean, with Babysitter Lives, that was quite tricky because time is not moving quite linearly, you
Yeah.
know? There's gaps, there's doubling ups, there's weird things happening. And I just write straight through generally. I don't keep track, but then when I go back, I'm like, oh, this can actually happen. Like, well, I mean, happen physically is the wrong thing to say because it's Babysitter Lives, but it can't happen like story wise, you know? Like with Killer on the Road, like you said, it's a velocity novel and it's linear. And so I did have to figure out where on Highway 80 Harper and crew are. You know, I had to keep track of that more or less, but that wasn't that hard because I knew Highway 80 really well back then. With Babysitter Lives, it was a lot trickier, which meant that the copy editing process was quite grueling because the copy editor held me to task about timelines and about layout of the floor plan of the house, you know,
Yeah.
and I thought it was kind of fun to have the floor plan shift around just slightly, you know. So like when I saw Room 3237, the documentary about The Shining, where Kubrick plays with the impossible like geography of these hallways and stuff. I was like, yes, justification, but it was too late because I'd already been through copy editing.
Yeah, a little too late on that one. But no, I can imagine how it's a really grueling process to apply logic, and like
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that these stories are paired together because one, like you
hmm
said, is very linear, very
hmm
straight line, and then another, it feels like an abstract painting, right? Like you're almost like
hmm
throwing what's out there and seeing what sticks. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting that they've been paired together like this and to read them kind of in tandem.
Yeah, no, it's really, it's like I made a really good decision with that. And you're right, they're such complete opposite stories, but I feel like Harper and Charlotte are kind of different expressions of a similar type of fighter, you know?
Yeah, and that kind of actually perfectly brings me to one of my bigger questions that I have for
Hmm.
you. The thing that really brings me back to your work time and time again is
Hmm.
you write characters who have faith and devotion. And I don't mean religious faith or, I
Hmm.
don't mean any of that. They are
Hmm.
very, Charlotte's devoted to those kids, right?
Hmm.
Um, you have Goodstab, who is very devoted to his Indianness and his Blackfeetness, and he wants
Hmm.
to remain intact. You have Arthur, who subscribes to Lutheranism and really has
Hmm.
that. And then Jade, who has slashers, who it's like her Bible, right? Like that's her
Hmm.
guidepost for life. What does it feel like, or do you have a specific approach? Because you consistently write these characters who are so authentically devoted to their cause.
Hmm.
Like, is that something that you've ever contemplated? Do you agree with that
Hmm.
statement? And how does it feel to write that?
I never had thought about it, but now that you say it, I suspect I do it because I never am fond of defining characters by their backstory because then that makes me have to fall into flashbacks or delivery of backstory through exposition or whatever over and over. And that to me takes away forward momentum.
Hmm.
And so I think a workaround I've probably come up with is to give the character something beyond fascination, which maybe faith or devotion is the right term for it, you know. It's like they're compelled by something different
Yeah.
other than oh, I had this formative experience 6 years ago and now I have to be this way, you know, which I'm not saying that that's real or invalid or anything. I'm just saying for the way that I write, I don't find it I find it kind of like something that slows me down rather than gives me speed.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it feels like they're readily dealing what's in front of them and they have this sense about them, whatever, faith, devotion, whatever you
Hmm.
want to call it,
Hmm.
that guides them through whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think it's
But
a really interesting characteristic that almost all your
thank you.
characters have in a different shape or form.
That's cool. Yeah, it's cool that I never thought of it, but also that belief system that they kind of have is almost always some sort of security blanket. And the thing about
Yeah.
security blankets is they can be ripped away, you know?
Hmm. That's how I look at Jade, right? Like
Hmm.
whenever I think about my time with Jade, is like she basically has had the rug pulled out from underneath her multiple times, and
Hmm.
and what does she have to fall back on to get through it, right?
Yeah, but she keeps on standing, right? She finds her feet. Man, she got them
Yeah.
big old combat boots. You're not gonna knock her over, man.
Absolutely. That's why we love her. That's why we love her so much. Well, this has been an incredible conversation, Stephen. Thank you so much for answering all of my questions. And just to
Hmm.
kind of wrap up a little bit, what does the rest of 2025 look like for you? I know you are writing all of the time.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
obviously we have the saga doubles that are coming out. I believe you have a story in Night and Day, which is also
Yeah,
coming out with
yeah.
Saga. But what else is on the horizon for you,
Hmm.
release wise?
Oh, I've got a few more stories coming out. I think I have one with Lightspeed. I have a couple of stories in anthologies. Um, I never keep track. I should have a little list I keep of upcoming stories, but I never do. So I just am surprised as anybody when they come out because, I probably have already been through copy editing for them, so it's going to be neat to see them when they finally show up. And I usually don't have any heads up when they show up either. I'm just like, oh, I saw that on social media. I guess it's happening, you know. But yeah, I am writing a novel right now, and it'll be coming out in 2026. Provided that it stays together. Who knows if it does? Like um, I like novels. They feel to me like how to say it like I'm on a spinning log in a river trying to stand up, and it's spinning under me, and we're going down river, but more and more bark and wood is falling off that the faster we go, and there's some rapids up ahead, and there's a big waterfall, and who knows what's going to happen? I never know, you know. So maybe this novel holds together, maybe it spins apart. I don't know, but I'm trying to hold it together right now. I think tomorrow I reach what's officially the halfway point of the story. I don't know if it's halfway page count, but I think it's the halfway point of the story, which is slow for me because I started this book May 1st, I believe. And so that'll be like 2 months for half a novel. Usually I can write a novel in about 10 weeks. Used to it was 6 weeks, but I'm getting older, so now it's 10 weeks. And so this one might end up taking me 3 or 4 months, which is weird. But I'm writing it in a different style or a different, like, I don't know, manner than I usually write a novel. I wanted to see what would happen. So,
I'm excited to see what's going to happen with it. Yeah, I'm always blown away with how you talk about your writing. Like in speed in general. Like
Mhm.
I know you were very
Mhm.
nonchalantly like, oh, this is taking me longer, but it's still
Mhm.
pretty quick.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
But whenever, just in general for your writing style, do you have like a set schedule every day that you sit down and do this
Mhm.
stuff, or is it just kind of like when the time's right?
Yeah, just when the time is right. I always think I want to grow up and be a writer who has a schedule, but I'm 53 years old. I don't think I'm growing up anymore. So I'm just like, all right, when I can sneak it in. Which and I try to never write longer than about an hour and 40 minutes at a
Yeah.
time. And like today, let's see. I think I got up about 7, maybe 7:15. I think I was to the keyboard about 7:45. And then I had to do email for like an hour and a half, which was totally ridiculous. I did not want to do that. But there are so many vital questions that had to be answered right now, all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
so I think by 9 o'clock I was cooking, and I wrote till about 10:15. Then I went and did something. I don't know what I did, something for about 30 or 40 minutes. And I came back and I wrote till about 12:30, ate lunch. Then I came back and wrote for about an hour. Then I went to the gym, and then I raced home, took a shower, and my hair's still wet, and I'm sitting here.
Well, I'm very thankful that you are in fact here. It sounds like a very productive day. And one other thing that I do like to ask authors is like, what are you reading, and if what you're reading, does it inform your writing in any way?
Yeah, I mean, everything I read informs my writing. That's unavoidable and wonderful too.
Hmm.
I just started yesterday a new novel, White Python World Tour.
Hmm.
It's a novel about 1986 hair metal, and there's some sort of like spy intrigue or something starting up. I'm only about 25% of the way through it, but I'm really digging it. It's super, super fun. Right before that, I think I read a comic book, which I can't remember the title of. It was a graphic novel, actually, not a comic book. It was pretty good, and I don't know. I'm always reading, but I
Yeah.
never can remember what I've read past about one book.
Oh no. And anytime anybody ever asks you about what you're reading, you're like, I've never read a book
Yeah.
ever. I don't know what you're
Yeah, oh,
you're
I know.
asking
That,
me.
that's that's how it goes. Oh, just today at the gym, I was audiobooking Murderland, that nonfiction book, and I
Oh
finished it at
yeah.
the I finished that at the gym. It was really good.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that one. I'm gonna have to pick that one up. That one
Hmm.
looks really, really intriguing.
Yeah, it
Um,
was. I mean, there's so many gory serial killer details in that book, man.
oh
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
No. I can about imagine, but I can't imagine it's anything worse than one of those kills that you had in Killer on the Road. So
Uh,
oh man. Well, thank you so much again, Stephen, for your time and just being so thoughtful with all your responses. Is there anything that I did not bring up or ask that you wanted to talk about?
oh, the cameos in Killer on the Road. There might be a um Smokey and the Bandit cameo. There might be a BJ and the Bear cameo. There might be one more too. I don't remember.
Well, it's you've got a lot of I'm blown away by one your semi truck knowledge, your
Mm,
mechanical knowledge,
mhm.
the roadway knowledge that you had, and all you throw in a good bit of references too to quite everything in the world of traveling like that. So I don't doubt it.
It was so fun. Yeah, I usually don't get to talk about that kind of stuff, so it was great.
I can see it on
Yeah.
your face. You look like a kid in a candy store right now. Oh man. Well, thank you again so much, Stephen. This has been wonderful. And I am super excited for everybody to get their hands on these books if they haven't experienced them already, like an audio form with Babysitter Lives. But yeah, thank you again so much. This has just been a pure delight.
Great time. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is my conversation with the one and only Mr. Stephen Graham Jones. Listening back to it while I'm editing it right now, there's so many moments that were just pure joy for me, whether it was talking about the X-Files or maybe accidentally unearthing some of Stephen's childhood trauma that informs some of his stories. Talking about just all of the things that go into his writing. It was just a real treat. And to be able to talk to him about these things in this format has just been absolutely the coolest. I would love to say I can't wait to do it again, but I will never not be nervous about talking to that man just because I respect him and his craft so much. So until next time, at any rate, next week I get to share my conversation with Paul Tremblay. We're going to be talking about his YA novel that is hitting shelves next week. Actually, sorry, it's a middle grade novel, not YA. Um, but it's a book that freaked me out all the same, and one that I think that everybody needs to read right now. So you have that to look forward to if that's your jam. As always, thank you all for sharing, promoting, commenting, subscribing, all of the things. It's always very, very kind whenever I see that that's happened from you guys. Wouldn't be able to do it without y'all per usual, and just thank y'all so much. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to reshare it, help get the word out there, help get my name out there. I love doing this, and I just hope that I get to keep doing it for however long that might be. So thank you guys so